I want to start with something I'm almost embarrassed to admit. I was watching someone I cared about just talk over me, dismiss what I said, cut off a sentence mid-breath and redirect everything back to themselves, and instead of saying anything I just sat there, quietly recalibrating, trying to figure out how to get them to stop. I tried being warmer, calmer. I tried shrinking into some version of myself that wouldn't trigger the shutdown I could feel coming. And I want to ask you something honest right now. How much of your energy have you spent doing that exact same thing? Not asking clearly for what you need, not naming what's actually happening, just adjusting, rearranging yourself, performing a less threatening version of who you are so the avoidant in your life stays comfortable enough to stick around. Here's the first question, the one that looks simple until you actually sit with it. Why do you think that ever worked? Because if you look at the actual pattern, honestly, not generously, it didn't. It created this thing where your behavior became the variable and their discomfort became the constant. You were the one changing, they were the one being maintained, and the disrespect you kept running into wasn't random. It was the predictable result of a dynamic where your needs had basically been removed from the equation entirely. So what actually changes that? Most people get this completely wrong. They think the answer is softer language, more patience, more empathy for the avoidance wound. And look, understanding someone's wound isn't wrong, but understanding a wound isn't the same thing as letting it operate on you indefinitely without consequence. Those are genuinely different things, and collapsing them together is exactly why so many people spend years in the same loop, waiting for the avoidant to grow into the partner they need, while slowly becoming unrecognizable to themselves. Which, when you think about it, is kind of heartbreaking. Let me show you what's actually happening inside an avoidant nervous system during conflict. Avoidant defense patterns aren't just behavioral, they're rooted in neurobiological adaptations to early relational environments. Studies on adult attachment show that people with dismissive avoidant patterns tend to deactivate their attachment system under stress, especially when things get emotionally close. What that means practically is this. When you approach an avoidant with emotional intensity, with urgency, with need that feels big, their nervous system doesn't process the content of what you're saying. It processes the volume of what you're feeling, and it reads that volume as a threat. The core threat is engulfment, loss of self, autonomy, emotional control. During conflict, an avoidantly attached person moves toward withdrawal or shutdown. The trigger isn't distance, it's intensity, emotional escalation, demands for engagement, your activation. Their system reads all of that as danger and responds by shutting down. Okay, so here's the deeper question. If emotional intensity shuts them down, does that mean you're supposed to have no emotional intensity? Does that mean you compress yourself into some permanently quiet, non-threatening presence just to keep the connection alive? No, and this is where the conversation around avoidant relationships goes completely off the rails. Because the popular advice says, be calm, be patient, give space, don't pressure. And people take that advice and disappear into it. They become so non-threatening that they become invisible. They stop voicing their needs. They stop naming what isn't working. And then they wonder why the avoidant respects them less over time, not more. Here's what's actually going on. Avoidant attachment is a pattern where closeness can feel important, but emotionally hard to sustain. These people often learned early that having needs, showing vulnerability, depending on someone, none of that felt safe or welcome. So the nervous system adapted, became more self-reliant, more emotionally contained, more likely to pull back when things got too exposed. They learned that needs were burdens, that vulnerability was dangerous, that the safest person in the room was the one who required nothing, and then you showed up, needing nothing loudly, endlessly accommodating, and their system scanned you and concluded, without a single word, this person is safe to dismiss, not because they're cruel, because their nervous system reads an absence of limits as an absence of consequence. And a person with no consequence is a person who can be treated any way at all. This part took me a long time to fully see. The disrespect isn't just a side effect of their wound. It's the natural result of a dynamic where you've removed your own limits from the relationship. Their wound created the architecture for it. Your accommodation built it room by room. So the question shifts entirely. It's no longer, how do I communicate more softly? How do I phrase things so I don't trigger their shutdown? It becomes, what do I actually say when the behavior is unacceptable? Not how do I manage their reaction, but what words actually change the dynamic instead of just maintaining it? Because here's the thing, avoidants open up when they don't feel pushed. Shorter, calmer, structured conversations go way further than intense emotional downloads. They respond best to here's what I feel and here's what I need, rather than overwhelm or indirect signals. Read that again. Not, here's everything I've been swallowing for 3 weeks. Not, I can't keep doing this, you never show up for me. Not the long message at midnight. Here's what I feel. Here's what I need. That's the structure. But here's what most people miss about it. The words aren't a strategy for managing them. They're an expression of your own clarity. And clarity is the thing the avoidant nervous system genuinely doesn't know how to dismiss. Let me show you the difference in real words. Sentence 1. I just feel like you never really listen to me, and it makes me feel so invisible, and I don't even know if you care about this relationship anymore. Sentence 2. When you cut me off earlier, that felt dismissive. I don't accept that. I need you to hear me when I speak. Same pain, completely different landing. The first sentence is a spiral, accusatory, catastrophizing, and it ends with a question that gives the avoidant nowhere to stand. Just an emotional field with no edges. The second sentence has edges. It names a specific behavior, states a position. And it doesn't ask the avoidant to suddenly become a different person. It just says, this is what happened, this is how I received it, and this is what I won't accept. You can say, I'm okay with space, but I need communication that reassures me we're still connected. And when they dismiss even that, you don't escalate. You get quieter, more specific. That's not working for me. I'm going to step away and come back when this can be a real conversation. And then you actually step away. This is the turn almost nobody takes, because the anxious pull in that moment is enormous. Everything in you wants to stay in the room until it's resolved, until they understand, until they apologize, until you've said enough right words that the outcome shifts. But that pull, honestly, is the thing that keeps the disrespect alive. The anxiously attached partner, detecting distance, pursues, seeks reassurance, reconnection. And that pursuit, however well-intentioned, reads to the avoidance nervous system as escalating intensity, which triggers deeper withdrawal, which reads to the anxious partner as confirmation of abandonment, which triggers more urgent pursuit. You pursue. They withdraw. You pursue harder. They go further. And in that cycle, your words stop mattering. Because the dynamic has taken over. And nothing you say inside that dance changes its choreography. So the words that stop an avoidant from disrespecting you aren't magic phrases. They're not a script. They're a different orientation to the entire conversation. You speak from the ground, not from the panic. You name the behavior, not the story you've built around it. You state what you won't accept, not what you need them to be. And then, this is the part people genuinely don't do. You enforce it. Not dramatically. Not with an ultimatum designed to frighten them, but with the quiet, consistent, non-negotiable reality of someone who actually means what they said. Because here's what happens. An avoidant will attempt, not always consciously, to reframe your limits as your emotional dysfunction. You're being dramatic, sensitive, making things bigger than they need to be. And if you're not grounded in why you said what you said, if you're not clear that your position came from your values and not your fear, you'll fold. You'll apologize for asking not to be dismissed. You'll say never mind. And the dynamic will calcify further. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most content around avoidant relationships refuses to just say plainly. You cannot get an avoidant to respect you by being endlessly patient with disrespect. Patience isn't the same as acceptance, and acceptance isn't the same as love. Sometimes what gets called patience is actually fear, with a gentle story attached to it. Fear that if you speak clearly, they'll leave. Fear that your needs are too much. Fear that asking for basic treatment will cost you the connection entirely. And here's what I want you to actually sit with. If the connection can only survive when you're not fully present in it, what exactly are you preserving? Many avoidantly attached people love deeply. I think that's real. The struggle isn't usually love itself. It's tolerating vulnerability, dependence, emotional intensity, the fear of failing someone up close. That's real. Their capacity to love is real. But their capacity to love doesn't automatically protect you from the damage of staying in a dynamic where love is present, but respect is conditional. Research from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that softening emotional and behavioral defenses during conflict, not intensifying them, is what actually creates opening in avoidant individuals. But softening your delivery isn't the same as softening your position. One is about tone, the other is about truth. Confuse them, and you end up with a soft voice delivering a collapsed message, which is basically just very polite self-erasure. The words that work sound like this. I noticed you dismissed what I said. I'm not going to keep talking until that changes. When you go quiet mid-conversation, I don't chase it. I give you space, but I need you to come back and finish what we started. I care about this connection, and I also have a line. What happened earlier crossed it. Short, specific, grounded, not angry, not pleading, not written at midnight, said clearly and then held. That's it. That's the whole thing. Because the moment you speak with that energy, the energy of someone who actually means it, who isn't performing a boundary but living one, the avoidant nervous system runs into something it genuinely doesn't know how to root around. Not a threat, not a punishment, not emotional intensity, a person with edges, someone who's present without being panicked, warm without being desperate, willing to stay and also willing to leave. And that combination, honestly, is the only thing that reorganizes the dynamic. Not because it manipulates the avoidant into behaving, but because it removes the condition that made the disrespect possible in the first place. You stopped being someone without consequence. That's not a game. That's not a tactic. That's the simple, difficult, non-negotiable act of treating your own presence as something that matters, something that costs them something when they fail to show up for it. The avoidant in your life may rise to meet that. They may not. But what changes regardless is this. You stop waiting for them to decide what you're worth. You already know, and you speak and move like someone who knows. The words you say to an avoidant that stop the disrespect aren't about them. They never were. They're about you finally being willing to say out loud what you've known quietly for a long time. You're not here to be managed. You're not here to be convenient. You're here to be known, met, and treated like it. And if this relationship can't hold that, then what it's holding isn't you. It's the version of you that learned to disappear to keep someone else comfortable, and you can stop disappearing now.